So in this course section, we learned about URLs and views. And instead of URLs, you will also sometimes hear the term routes. Routes for our application, URLs for our application. The concept is the same one though. The idea is that we have different paths, which is the part after the domain, so something like /nothing, /posts, /posts, /something else, and that for these different paths, we can trigger different actions. And these actions are our views. It's the logic that is executed for different URLs. And we can build them as a function or as a class, which we'll cover later. And then there we handle the incoming request and return a response. And we saw this in action in this module. We added a bunch of URLs and a bunch of views which are triggered for these different URLs. And we learned about important features like dynamic path segments, which basically consume any value that's entered and then allow you to run the same view function for different concrete values, which you sometimes need to build truly dynamic websites. On the other hand, sometimes, like here with the index path, you need a hard-coded single value, in this case an empty string, to handle the /nothing case, to then only trigger the index view for this specific URL, and not for any URL with any value thereafter. And we learned about both. We learned how to register our URLs, and that we register them on the app level to then also link them to the project-wide URLs. There we have the admin URL, which we're not using right now, and then we added this challenges path, which works like a prefix and forwards all requests that start with /challenges after the domain to our challenges URLs. Now in the views, we then learned how these view functions look like. They get the request, with which we're not doing much right now, and they also get any dynamic segments our URL might have. Then in there, we can run any logic we need to run to fulfill this request and create the response which we want to return. And we have different examples of the logic we could run there in those different view functions. Then ultimately, those views are always about returning a response. For example, a response full of HTML code that is being sent back to the client. Simply some text that contains HTML code. Or we return a redirect. If we know that we want to send a response, but we actually want to get the browser who sent the request to visit another page, then we can use a redirect. Sometimes we also don't find the resources we want to work with, or we have some error working with the data we got from the client. In such cases, we could send back a not found response, as we're also doing it here. Now, there are other errors we could be sending back as well, and other responses. But these are the important basics and the responses which you typically will use the most. Now, we then also sometimes might want to construct our own URLs. We want to construct links to other URLs of our website. And for this, we can use the reverse function. The reverse function allows us to build URLs dynamically without hard coding them. We identify them by name, and that's why we can assign names here. And then we can build such a URL dynamically and use that however we want to use it, for example, for redirecting or for generating a link in HTML, like we're doing it here in the index view. And that's essentially it. Now, throughout the course, we will also learn how to extract data from the incoming request. We're going to learn how to send back real HTML documents where we store the HTML code in separate files. And we're also going to learn how we talk to a database and much more. But these essentials here, which we learned in this module, will always matter. And that's why I spent so much time on this module. With that, let's now continue.